Hey guys, it's Kelsey here, your best friend on the homestead from roughandtumblefarmhouse.com. I'm out here today at my potting bench. I am raiding my collection of terracotta pots, and not for actually putting plants in, but today we are going to be making some super cute terracotta pot candles. These things are just so adorable, and we're going to use some really fun scents today, and they make really awesome gifts, and they're just fun to have around your house too. They're perfect for springtime. I'm obsessed with these things. So let's head into the house and I'll show you how we make them. All right, so here I have some really basic supplies that we're going to use for making these. I have more stuff than you actually are probably going to need, but I'm just going to talk with you through a few of the options. So first of all, we have pots here in a couple different sizes, just because I wanted to experiment a little bit with making some different size candles. So I'd actually bought a few that were this size. These are the 3.5 inch in diameter across the top size pot, which I think makes a really good candle. With this size, you're only going to need one wick in the middle, as opposed to if you get much bigger than this, you're going to need 2 wicks. And of course, it is a tapered kind of a shape. So at the bottom, we've got a much smaller diameter than we have at the top, but we still need to make sure we're getting an even burn when we start with these things. So I think a 3.5 makes a nice size. And then we're going down here. I believe this is a 2-inch one, I think. Yeah, somewhere around a 2-inch one. And then I found these little ones just when I was digging through my craft supplies. And so I thought it'd be fun to make some little teeny tiny ones too. I think my daughters will like those. So they're just kind of for fun. But so depending on what size pot you have, that is going to depend on what size wick you use. Now, when I was first kind of dabbling in candle making, I was doing so or trying to do so on the cheap. I would recommend, I'm going to put a picture right here of the ready to go wicks. They already have kind of the little tabs on the bottom of them. They have already been primed, which means they've already been dipped in wax. So they're stiff and straight and going to be really easy to use versus getting the separate pieces and trying to assemble them. That's going to take more time, especially if you're just kind of dipping your toe in this. You can kind of do more advanced wicks later, but maybe just start with simple ones. So I'm going to show you really quick what I have here. So this is a hemp beeswax coated wick, and I got these specifically for making hand dipped beeswax candles, like taper candles, and these work really well for that. I can use these. I'll probably try using these today on these smaller size itty bitty ones, but even still, I'm going to want it to be a little bit thicker. So to do that, I'm going to kind of line it up here with my little cup, and then I'm just going to take it and twist it, kind of like braid it around itself. And since it's already sticky with beeswax, it's going to hold its spot really nice and just make a nice little braided wick that I'm going to use in here. Because if it's, I have used this before for other candle making. I have found that it is too thin, like it burns really fast. But with this braided wick, that helps to kind of slow down the situation. So this is fine for this itty bitty pot. I would not use it for the next size up pot for our, again, I'm pretty sure these are 2-inch pots. For these ones, I'm going to be using a thicker wick. So again, this is one where I was trying to do it on the cheap, and this is a flat wick, as you can see. Other ones are a boxed wick, so it would look more like a square, which would be a better choice for these. But I am today going to be using these. What I'm going to do, and I'll show you a little bit, I'm going to dip it in the wick, I'm going to dip it in the wax, and I'm also going to kind of fasten it into one of these. I do have those little round ones that you'll see when you go to look to buy some wicks, but I could not find them in my disaster of craft supplies. So I'm just gonna kind of experiment today and use this. It's really important that if you are using something, a wick that doesn't already come with a base, that you attach to some kind of base, because otherwise as the wax heats up, your wick is going to kind of start to come loose and just kind of float around and get sideways and funky. So you need to make sure you are weighting it down to the bottom somehow. Now the last one I'm going to show you here, this is a wood wick, and this is actually what I'm planning on using in these ones over here. So these ones are nice. I'll show you how to assemble one. I like how these smell. I like they've got a good crackle, and so it's just going to sit here in the jar like so. And to put these ones together, I'll show you real quick. They usually come unassembled, so they don't break or things like that. And they have here, you can see, like usually a little bit of kind of stuff in there you got to clear out. And then you just take the two ends, and you will most likely break some of these in the process. I have absolutely broken some. And then you just kind of slide them together here. This is slightly complicated to do on camera. I always have to putz with these longer than, I'm sure there's some sort of secret trick to this that I just don't know. So if you are a professional candle maker, then this is not the video for you, obviously. Okay, there we go. And then that end snaps in place. And we snap that little guy in place. And then we're gonna take one of these metal jobbers here and we just push it in. There we go. And then to that, I have these little stickers. And so you just stick one on the bottom like that. And then I'm gonna peel this off like so. One thing I cannot stress the importance of enough is making sure that we are sealing up this bottom before we put wax in, or you're gonna have a disaster on your hands. Ask me how I know. So I am using painter's tape. I'm gonna do kind of like a little X situation here on the inside. And then just as an overabundance of caution, we're gonna put one on the outside too, because there's nothing worse than admiring your beautiful candle and all of a sudden you have wax leaking all over your counter or wherever you're making this thing. So we're gonna stick one more here, and this we can take off after everything has set, but this is just one more extra precaution. So I'm gonna do that for the other ones as well here, and then I'm going to get the wicks all set up. I'm gonna show you really quick what I did with these ones to make them work, is I'm just kind of going to tuck it through the bottom, grab onto it. So I'm holding it firm over here, and then I'm kind of sliding it, pulling it, there we go, into these little grabber claws here, and that's holding it nice and firm. And these I'll have to trim. Oh, need to retwist that sucker. I'll trim these down a little bit probably once I just see how well they fit inside these little pots here. Okay, so I have gotten all of my wicks ready to go for my candles here. These ones, because this has not been primed, it does not have any wax on it, I'm gonna have to dip it in the melted wax before I stick them in. So the other thing that you might need is something to hold these upright. You can just use some pencils on either side. I do actually have little gizmos that go over them to keep your wicks upright, because even though this is coated and staying upright right now, once that beeswax gets warm on that wick, it might get a little bit sloopy on me here. For the wood ones, it's nice. You don't need anything. They hold themselves exactly where they need to be. So this is all probably way more complicated than it needed to be. Basically, if you buy the right size wick that is already one of the ready-made wicks, you're literally going to take it, you're going to pull like the sticky part off the bottom, and you're going to stick it in your candle vessel. Super fast, super easy. This is all just putsy stuff because this is what I had on hand. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about what we're putting inside of our candles. Now, my favorite thing to use is, of course, beeswax. Beeswax, though, is on the pricier side, and I like to keep the beeswax I currently have for some other projects. So what we're going to be using today is 100% soy wax. As you can see back here, I have this Freedom soy wax. I just got it on Amazon. So it is just these little pellets here. And what we are going to do is we're going to melt it in the microwave, which is a really easy way to do it. You can also do it in a double boiler on your stovetop. But I'm just going to use this glass. This is a 2-cup measuring cup, which should be plenty for these ones over here. And it's really simple. You just follow the instructions on the bag. So this you heat to 160, you stir in your fragrance, and then you're going to pour into your container. You microwave it in 30-second bursts, and you stir in between every time. So I'll show you that whole process. And we're also going to be adding our scents as well. And you also need to know how much wax you're going to be putting into your container. I will link to some people who have figured out kind of the formulas that you use for that. But what I'm going to be doing is just kind of right now mixing up a big batch of it and then pouring it into my separate containers, because I'm going to do 2 scents in kind of a series. So this is going to be this is going to be in 1 scent, and then these 3 are going to be in 1 scent. So I'm going to start getting my wax melted in here, and then I'm going to tell you about how we figure out and measure our fragrances based on our wax. So first things first, we want to measure the weight of what all of our wax is. This is important because when we look at our scents here, and spoiler, we're making a tomato leaf candle, which is exciting. You want it to be 3 to 10% of the fragrance oil. And if you get this to 199 degrees, this fragrance oil, it is going to start on fire. So it's important that we follow our temperature guidelines here. So this is 3 to 10%. I have found I really like Candle Science fragrances. This is part of one of their clean scents line, which is free of all sorts of kind of like nasty stuff that usually scent oils have in them. So with 3 to 10%, I normally do about 7%, and I find that's pretty good for most of their fragrances, but you are going to have to sort of play around and see how strong of a scent you like. It does mellow usually after the candles have cured, but so that's kind of what I figure on. So we need to know the weight of our soy wax so that we can know how much of this we should put in there. So I'm going to zero out my scale. Then we're going to add in our wax. Okay, so we've got just about 2 cups, and I'm going to put a little bit more in here just because I want it a nice, even, easy number for me to remember what we're doing here. Okay, so we have 250 grams of our wax. So now we're going to figure out how much of our fragrance oil we should put in using a very simple formula. So if we want to have 7% of 250, we are very simply going to take 0.07. We're going to times that by, and I know this says 280, now it's got that on there, times 250, which equals, because I did the math on my calculator, 17.5. So we are going to use 17.5 grams of our fragrance oil for this batch of wax. So I'm going to take this over to the microwave, and while that's melting, we will measure out around, we'll go down to 17 grams of our fragrance oil. Okay, so here is what the wax pellets look like after about a minute. They're getting a little bit kind of melty, but not much. You can see I'm having to use my sleeve because by the time you actually get these things melted in the microwave and up to temperature of 160 degrees, this glass is pretty hot. So just keep that in mind. I'm just using a regular wood spoon because soy wax, thankfully, cleans really easy. This looks so much like Dippin' Dots right now, by the way. It's making me hungry. So we're just going to pop this back in the microwave for another 30 seconds, give it a stir. It'll probably take around 2 minutes before this is all melted down. And then we're going to add in our fragrance oil. Okay, so I have my wax all melted here. It's at 160 degrees. It will melt before it hits 160 degrees. So just make sure that you kind of go a little bit past the point of melting. Now I'm going to go ahead and prep or kind of prime these wicks here that I had, which again, you probably will not have to do this step if you just buy the ready to go wicks. There we go. And that's just dipping them in the wax. They'll just burn better and easier. And let's kind of lay that here off to the side. And then we are going to add in our fragrance oil. So here I have the fragrance oil that we already measured out. I did a 7% of the rate of this. So we just pour it in and then we stir. And I like to do sort of a up from the bottom sort of a stir. We're not trying to like whisk it or anything and incorporate a bunch of air bubbles, just kind of an up and down motion sort of a thing. And you want to do around 40 stirs at least, just to make sure you're actually getting it incorporated. And of course I have lost count here on how many stirs you've done. So we're just going to eyeball it and guess here, probably do like another 20 maybe, just to be sure. So now we are going to pour our wax with our scent oil right on in. And I recommend doing this on a plate because once again, ask me how I know. Leaks happen and you want to have them contained when they do. So we're just going to go ahead and pour. We want it to come just to below, kind of where, just imagine if you're going to light the candle, how much wick you would want to have available. So there we go. And I'll do the other ones, which I have propped up with my with my 1-year-old's activity sticks. So it's actually been a few days since I made these candles. There was a minor disaster. We're not going to get into it. It has nothing to do with anything you need to worry about, just me with kids and cats. But so here we have our candles. This one already got pulled off by an adventurous 1-year-old. But so they look nice. All we need to do is we'll take this one off here as well. Let's see if I can do that one-handed while filming. Just pull this off. And then we're going to trim the wicks down to about 1/4 of an inch is where you want them for optimal burning. This one where I took the tape off, it did leak a teeny tiny little bit even through that first layer of tape, so I still haven't perfected for covering the bottom. I know Martha Stewart has made these candles before and she puts a penny on the bottom, so that might be something worth trying, I guess, to see if that seals it up. I feel like that wouldn't be very effective, but anyway, that is how I chose to seal the bottom. And again, use 2 layers just to be safe and have it set up on a plate so if it does leak, you don't have a huge mess. Okay, so let's talk about a few things that are really important before you hop off the video. Also, sorry, things look different, I look different. It takes me a couple days usually to get things filmed between kids and farm and everything, so I know things are kind of like jumpy and weird, but hopefully you stayed with me. So a few things with these candles. Number one, make sure, of course, you don't leave them burning unattended around kids, cats, etc. They are a little more on the tippy side, so you want to keep that in mind. Also, remember that bottom, that hole, you could seal it up with something more permanent if you wanted to. I think that would be a good idea as opposed to just tape potentially. You can use beeswax for these, absolutely. Beeswax is a little trickier. And I mean, not super complicated, but it does cost a little bit more. Beeswax is harder to clean up, and you're going to need to use a double boiler if you're using beeswax. It is highly flammable. So you need a double boiler that's going to be kind of dedicated to just beeswax, because otherwise it's hard to clean off of stuff. So you're making a double boiler. I think it's 180 you heat that to before you pour it. I'll put a note down here what that temperature is. And then you can make some really beautiful beeswax candles in here as well, which I think would smell lovely and be really very sweet. So other things to keep in mind about these candles, the soy wax is easy to clean up. Just water and soap, it should clean up just fine. If you want to use these in the future for growing plants in it, I don't see any reason why you could not, or just reuse it again for making more candles, which is what I'm probably going to do with these things myself. As far as scents, you can do essential oils or fragrance oils. I like the Clean Scent line from Candle Science. They have a ton of really great sort of botanical flower herb type ones that are fun, I think, for these little pots. The essential oils, they are more expensive. The scent isn't going to last as long, and you have to be careful about what essential oils you are burning in your home if you have pets, because cats and dogs have essential oil sensitivities. I guess I don't know about like birds and rabbits and stuff because we don't have any in the house right now, but so make sure you're aware of that before you go ahead and choose to use essential oils. If you have any questions at all, let me know, and make sure you also check the blog post, because once I post these YouTube videos, I can't go back and edit them to add more content. If I go, oh shoot, I forgot this thing, I can always go back and edit the blog post. So that has a full step-by-step tutorial. I would check that out. I link some other more fun videos here for you to check out. Otherwise, we'll see you here next week for more from our Rough and Tumble farmhouse.